Okay, we're back, and I have taken my little 3/8 inch scrub brush, and I am scrubbing back some of these areas that I want to be lighter, like this light right here. And you basically just keep a clean brush, damp brush, and take the edge and just go in here and ever so slightly do that, and it's like you're erasing. Okay, so you're erasing all of this to give that highlight, ever so subtly though. And over in here, maybe just erase a little bit of that. So now I'm happy with all that. I think I will drop in the tree. So let's make up a mixture of burnt sienna, our standard brown mixture, which of course is burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and that gives us either a gray or a brown depending on how much of each we put in. So I don't want a harsh brown, so I'm going to keep it nice and watery at this point. And I'm just going to lay in this tree. But I'm not going to lay in all of the tree. I'm not going to cover it. I'll make it a solid mass. So we're going to give it the illusion of bark. Okay. Don't quite like how large that is up here, so what I'm going to do is make this a little bit larger back down here to compensate for that, so it looks more correct in its size. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to create some texture immediately in that tree that is in the foreground, so we do want it to be textured. And then, because this is darker, I'm going to go a bit darker in here with this limb and let it drop down like that and bleed right back into the tree, so we have a nice flow and a nice connection there. Then I'm going to take this on out, and the limbs, even though, because you're looking at a photograph and it is flattened, it doesn't really show you, but generally limbs will get lighter as they go further up in the sky, but darker here where they meet the actual other limb. I'm going to go ahead and drop this one in. Oh, I like that. Okay, that's neat. All right, we're going to drop this one in, but ultimately this one's going to be darker because it's behind. We need to differentiate between those two. So we've got our tree in there, making this darker back behind here, and darker there with just a little bit stronger pigment. Give the illusion that's behind, making this one darker, giving that illusion that's behind this one, and this a little bit darker here where it connects, and giving the illusion it's behind that, making the joints a little bit darker in there, the underside of the limb a little bit darker here. We don't want that bleeding into that. So, okay, I'm happy with that. I can go ahead and drop these limbs in back here. Just the illusion of some trees there. We've got some trees back here. No great detail, just illusion there. Got one up in here. I'm liking how this is turning out so far. I did scrub a little bit back along the horizon line above these trees here to give this illusion of light. The sky is always lighter, closer to the horizon line. And I'm going to try putting the dark edges on these rocks and see what happens there. And just bleeding them out a little bit, lightening them a little bit. Just that's clear water, okay? So that gives the shadow, the illusion of the shadow in the water. I like that. All right, let's do the same thing over here. Underneath the rock. Yeah, I don't like that too much. Get rid of that. Okay, here we go. Spread that out. Got another rock here. All right, let's go in and build some of these darks under here. Let's do a little Payne's Gray in that mixture. And that was that same mixture that we just used for the brown, but I added a little Payne's Gray to it. So now it's going to be much darker. And we are going to really drop some darks in here. I want that to be a little waterier though, so I'm adding more water to that. So I don't want it to look too contrived in here. And just going around the rocks to the kind of to the underneath side and where you see them, like that. So you're building some darks under here, like that, and some dark areas. Basically where you've put this color, just loosely going around it, not precisely over it, but just around it, building those darks so that that blue still shows through, and coming up under these rocks if you can. Now this is a really pointy brush. I would actually probably should be using a brush even more smaller than this. Let's try to carry these shadow forms out and connect them. Keep them all connected if we can, which is kind of nice. That also gives the illusion that this is one big mass of rocks here. Especially back in here. All right, this whole thing is dark back in here. So, trying to get just in little areas in between the rocks where there might be, where they meet, where there's a shadow underneath, like that. And then soften it back. Keep softening it back. You can always go over it again. It's better to keep this soft if you can. And trying to pick out some of these shapes that you see in here around these forms, like that. Softening that a little bit. You don't really see definite shapes in here. You just see dark areas. And it's important that they all connect. So that makes it more believable. And if it gets too harsh, you can spritz it, and that'll help. We'll do that in a minute, just to see what happens. Keeping this loose. Being careful not to overwork it too much, which is so easy to do. Give it a little texture. See how that's looking like it's just a bunch of lines there. That's not what we want. So spritzing that. Actually, let's spritz the whole rock area and see what happens when we drop water in there. Try to get this looser. Oh, I like that better. I love that. Okay. So just be sure you spritz it. I think get this nice look. That is very nice, actually. Very loose, very nice. Really like that. I'm liking that better. All right. I'm going to make the sky dark down here. This is all dark down here. Leave him light, though. Actually, I don't know if I would do much more. Just soften any hard lines you see that maybe got too hard. Like that. It looks like we drew around the rocks, which of course we did. So we don't want that look. And then if we want to lift some areas out, we can do that also. The idea is to try to gently suggest the different planes of the rocks, the face that faces the light, the underneath. I think this can be a little darker down here. I like this mixture of color though. I'm not going to push it that dark because I think that's just not going to look right. And you can put just a little bit of dark at the bottom of the rock and then just soften it, and that'll give the illusion that there's kind of a shadow on that rock, like that. This is a little too white over here, although there were some real white rocks, so maybe we'll save those. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for right now. I'm gonna push this back in here because that's all quite dark. And push that right into the tree. The more that we can keep everything touching everything else, the more believable it is. This is that same mixture. This tree is very dark. I don't think we're going to make it quite as dark. This is a very dry brush. That's how we're getting this look. Remember, you can use your credit card to get bark on these trees, or you can just use a real dry brush like this, which also works. And again, defining that where that limb comes behind here, and ever so lightly just scratching that a little bit. Okay, that's that same mixture, except a little bit darker. And here as well, I'm going to let it bleed into this because this is part of this tree, so we need to suggest that. Just giving it some loose texture, like that. Make it more interesting. We are going to put the foliage in. I didn't forget. I just don't want to do that until almost the very end. All right, you don't want to cover this limb entirely because then it's not going to look real. Then let's get this joint where this one comes out. And if I want it to be lighter at the end, I'll just lighten my touch on my brush. I guess we better drop in some more color there just to make you more interesting, like that. And a little more texture if I'd like to, just so you look like you're actually really limbs. So I think I'm satisfied with this. I've got to stand back and look at this. We're not going to put those grasses in yet. I am going to continue to build texture in this tree though. I really want that tree to have texture. Probably going to get my credit card out, truthfully. So let me stop and do that.